Smile while you can. It won't last long.
The waiter's smile was as fake as the performances my wife gave me every night for 3 years. I should know. I'd been keeping count. Marina sat across from me at Romano's, our supposedly romantic anniversary dinner, texting someone under the pristine white tablecloth while I nursed my third whiskey. 15 years, I said, raising my glass. Here's to us, sweetheart. She didn't even look up from her phone. Her manicured fingers, painted blood red, how fitting, tapped away at the screen with the urgency of a war correspondent filing breaking news. The diamond earrings I'd bought her last Christmas caught the candlelight, throwing tiny rainbows across her surgically enhanced cheekbones. She mumbled, the universal wife sound for, shut up, I'm busy. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small velvet box I'd been carrying around for weeks. Inside was a custom pendant I'd crafted myself in my garage workshop, a delicate silver heart with our initials intertwined, surrounded by tiny emeralds that matched her eyes. The same eyes that used to look at me like I hung the moon, back when we were broke and happy. Marina, I said, sliding the box across the table. I made this for you. She glanced up, annoyed at the interruption. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows, courtesy of some downtown salon that charged more per session than I made in a week, furrowed as she opened the box. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or indigestion from the overpriced salmon. It's nice, Eli, she said, snapping the box shut. Very crafty. Crafty, like I was some kindergartner making macaroni art. I'd spent 40 hours on that pendant, learning jewelry techniques from YouTube videos, burning my fingers with the soldering iron, starting over when the first 3 attempts looked like garbage. But sure, Marina, very crafty. Her phone buzzed again. This time she didn't even pretend to hide it as she read the message. A smile, a real one, the kind she used to give me, spread across her lips. Expecting someone? I asked. Actually, yes. She stood up, smoothing down her black dress. The one I'd never seen before. The one that probably cost more than our mortgage payment. Eli, I need to tell you something. The restaurant noise faded into background static. Other couples laughed and clinked glasses around us, celebrating their own anniversaries, their own lies. I felt like I was watching a movie of my life, waiting for the plot twist I already knew was coming. I've been seeing someone, Marina said, her voice steady as a surgeon's hand. For 8 months now. And before you ask, yes, I slept with him. Yes, it was better than anything we've had in years. And no, I don't regret it. The whiskey in my stomach turned to acid. Who? She looked toward the restaurant entrance, and I followed her gaze. Travis McKinnon strutted through the door like he owned the place, which, knowing his real estate connections, he probably did. 32 years old, gym-sculpted body barely contained in an expensive suit, smile that belonged on a toothpaste commercial. He was everything I wasn't. Young, rich, and apparently sleeping with my wife. Travis, she called out, waving him over like he was a taxi in Manhattan. He approached our table with the confidence of a man who'd never been punched in the face, which was about to change if he said the wrong thing. Marina, babe, he said, leaning down to kiss her cheek. Right there, in front of me, at our anniversary dinner. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was basically a homicide waiting to happen. Homicide. Interesting choice of words. Travis, meet my husband Eli, Marina said, like she was introducing 2 business associates. Eli, this is Travis. We're leaving together. I stayed seated, studying Travis's face. He had the kind of features that women swooned over. Strong jaw, perfect teeth, eyes the color of money. But there was something weak around the edges, something that told me he'd never had to fight for anything in his life. Nice to meet you, Eli, he said, extending his hand. Marina's told me so much about you. I bet she had. I looked at his manicured hand, then back at his face. I'm sure she has. The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Other diners were starting to notice the tension at our table. The waiter hovered nearby, probably wondering if he should call security. Well, Marina said, grabbing her purse, this has been educational, but we really should go. She started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Eli? I'll be staying at Travis's place tonight, and probably for the foreseeable future. We'll talk about the details later. They walked out together, leaving me alone with 2 untouched entrees and the wreckage of my marriage. The other diners tried not to stare, but I could feel their pity radiating across the room like heat from a furnace. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 8:47 p.m. Then I opened my notes app and typed, "Anniversary dinner. Marina leaves with Travis McKinnon. Public humiliation complete." The waiter approached cautiously. "Sir, is there anything I can get you?" "The check," I said, pulling out my wallet. "And a to-go box. Waste not, want not." As I drove home through the familiar streets of our post-industrial New England town, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: clarity. The fog of trying to save my marriage, of pretending everything was fine, of making excuses for Marina's coldness. It all lifted like smoke in the wind. I parked in our driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the house we'd bought when we still believed in forever. The porch light was on, casting shadows across the lawn I'd mowed just that morning. Such a normal, suburban scene. Nobody driving by would guess that the man sitting in the Honda Civic had just watched his life explode in a fancy restaurant. My daughter Jessica was in the living room when I walked in, sprawled across the couch with her laptop, probably making TikToks about how embarrassing her parents were. At 18, she had Marina's looks and my stubborn streak, a combination that made her either destined for greatness or federal prison. "Dad," she said, not looking up from her screen, "why are you home so early? And why do you smell like whiskey?" "Your mother won't be coming home tonight," I said, hanging my keys on the hook by the door. "Or probably any other night." That got her attention. She closed the laptop and actually looked at me. "What happened?" "She's been having an affair with Travis McKinnon. She decided tonight was the perfect time to make it official." Jessica's face went through several expressions: surprise, anger, and finally something that looked suspiciously like relief. "Honestly, Dad? Good for her." The words hit me like a slap. "Excuse me? You heard me. Mom deserves better than this." She gestured around the modest living room with its secondhand furniture and family photos. "Better than you?" I stared at my daughter, the child I'd raised, taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, driven to soccer practice for 6 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. "You knew," I said. It wasn't a question. Of course I knew. Everyone knew. Mom's been miserable for years. You just kept pretending everything was fine, like some sad, middle-aged cliché. Every word was a knife between my ribs. I was trying to save our family. "What family?" Jessica laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You live in your garage. Mom works 16-hour days to avoid coming home, and I spend all my time planning how to get out of this dead-end town. That's not a family, Dad. That's just 3 people sharing an address." I walked upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom now, I supposed. Marina's side of the closet was half empty. Her jewelry box was gone. The framed photo of our wedding day had been turned face down on her nightstand. She'd been planning this for a while. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. No messages from Marina, no missed calls, nothing. 15 years of marriage, and she couldn't even be bothered to send a text. But I had a message from an unknown number. "Saw what happened at Romano's. Sorry, man, call if you need anything. Sam. Sam Rodriguez. No, wait, Sam Mitchell. My old friend from the boxing gym, one of the few people in town who still treated me like a human being instead of Marina's disappointing husband." I was about to call him back when I heard Jessica's voice drifting up from downstairs. She was on the phone with someone, and her voice had that excited gossip tone that teenagers perfected. "Right there in the restaurant? Can you believe it? Mom just walked out with him. Yeah, Travis McKinnon. I know, right? He's like super hot. Dad just sat there like a loser." I closed my eyes and counted to 10, then 20. Then I stopped counting and walked to my closet. Behind my winter coats, taped to the back wall, was a manila envelope I'd hoped I'd never have to open. Inside were photographs, bank statements, hotel receipts, text message printouts, 8 months' worth of evidence documenting my wife's affair, compiled by the private investigator I'd hired when I first suspected something was wrong. I'd told myself I was gathering evidence for a potential divorce. But looking at the photos now, Marina and Travis kissing in his Tesla, entering his downtown condo, holding hands at restaurants across town, I realized I'd been planning something else entirely: revenge. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document. At the top, I typed, "Operation Anniversary Gift, Phase 1 complete." Then I started making a list. The next morning, I woke up to find Jessica making breakfast, a rare occurrence that immediately put me on high alert. She was humming some pop song and actually smiling, which in teenager language meant she was either high or plotting something. "Morning, Dad," she said, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs across the kitchen counter. "Sleep okay?" I studied her face for signs of sarcasm or malice. "Fine, considering my wife left me for a real estate agent young enough to be her little brother." "Travis is 32, Dad. That's hardly a boy toy." She poured orange juice into 2 glasses, acting like we were discussing the weather instead of the destruction of our family. "Besides, age is just a number. So is the number of years I've been supporting this family while your mother built her career?" Jessica rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. You act like you're some kind of martyr. Mom's interior design business is successful because she's talented and works hard. What do? Fix cars and build birdhouses in the garage?" "I restore classic automobiles and create custom furniture pieces," I corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there, though?" I ate my eggs in silence while Jessica chattered about her plans for the day. "College visits," she said, "looking at apartments near the state university, making arrangements to escape this toxic environment as soon as possible." Toxic environment. Apparently, that's what we were calling home now. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "We'll pick up more clothes later today. Please don't be there. Please don't be there, in my own house." The house I'd been paying the mortgage on for 12 years while she built her little design empire. I texted back, "It's my house too." Her response came immediately, "Not for much longer." Interesting. I screenshotted the conversation and added it to a new folder on my phone labeled Evidence, Phase 2. After Jessica left for her college tour, I drove to Sam's boxing gym on the other side of town. The Knockout Club was the kind of place that looked exactly like what it was, a converted warehouse where men came to hit things and pretend they were still dangerous. The smell of sweat, leather, and broken dreams hit me as soon as I walked through the door. Sam was working the heavy bag, his movements still sharp despite being 45 and carrying an extra 20 pounds around his middle. He'd been a decent amateur boxer back in the day before a car accident ended his dreams of turning pro. Now he owned this gym and tended bar at Murphy's Tavern on weekends. "Eli," he said, unwrapping his hands. "Heard about last night. Rough break, man." News travels fast in this town. "Marina Castellano walking out of Romano's with Travis McKinnon? That's front-page material around here." He grabbed 2 bottles of water from a cooler and tossed me one. "How you holding up?" "About as well as you'd expect." I took a long drink, letting the cold water wash away the taste of betrayal. "What do you know about McKinnon?" Sam's expression darkened. "Rich kid, trust fund baby. His daddy owns half the commercial real estate in town. Never had to work for anything in his life." "What else?" "Why, you planning something stupid?" I met his eyes. "Define stupid." "Eli." Sam grabbed my shoulder. "I know you're hurting, but don't do anything that's gonna land you in jail. Marina ain't worth it." Who said anything about jail? We spent the next hour working the heavy bag. With each punch, I imagined Travis's perfect face, his smug smile, the way he'd kissed Marina's cheek right in front of me like he was marking his territory. By the time I left the gym, my knuckles were raw and my head was clear. I had work to do. My first stop was the town library, where I spent 2 hours researching Travis McKinnon on their public computers. Social media profiles, business records, property ownership, even his college transcripts. Everything was there if you knew where to look. Travis came from money, just like Sam had said. His father, Robert McKinnon, owned McKinnon Properties, one of the biggest real estate development companies in the region. Travis had been handed a position at the company straight out of college, despite graduating with a 2.3 GPA and a reputation as a party boy. But the interesting stuff was more recent. Travis had expensive tastes, luxury cars, designer clothes, high-end restaurants. His social media was full of pictures from exotic vacations and exclusive events, the kind of lifestyle that required serious money, the kind of money he shouldn't have had on his salary. I dug deeper into the public records and found something interesting. 3 properties Travis had sold in the past year had been purchased by shell companies that traced back to offshore accounts. The sales prices were significantly below market value, and in each case, the properties were resold within 6 months for substantial profits. Money laundering, maybe, or just creative accounting to avoid taxes. Either way, it was the kind of information that could be useful in the right circumstances. My phone rang as I was printing out the property records. Marina's name flashed on the screen. "Hello, sweetheart," I answered. "How's the new boyfriend treating you?" "Don't be petty, Eli. We need to talk." "I thought we talked last night." "Very publicly, as I recall." There was a pause. "I'm coming by the house at 3 to get some things. I'd prefer if you weren't there. I'd prefer if my wife of 15 years hadn't been sleeping with a trust fund baby for 8 months, but we don't always get what we want. This is exactly why we're getting divorced, Marina snapped. Your attitude, your refusal to grow up, your complete inability to provide the kind of life I deserve. The kind of life you deserve, I repeated. Interesting phrase. Tell me, Marina, what exactly do you think you deserve? More than this. More than you. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a moment, then added the call log to my evidence folder. At 2:45 p.m., I parked across the street from my house and waited. Marina arrived right on time, driving a car I didn't recognize. A brand new BMW convertible with temporary plates. Travis's car, probably. Or maybe she'd already upgraded her lifestyle. She was inside for exactly 37 minutes. When she came out, she was carrying 2 suitcases and a garment bag. No boxes, no photo albums, no sentimental items, just clothes and whatever jewelry I hadn't already given her. As her BMW disappeared around the corner, I walked back into my house. She'd been thorough. Her side of the closet was completely empty now. Her toiletries gone from the bathroom, even her coffee mug missing from the kitchen cabinet. But she'd left something behind. In her hurry to erase herself from our life, Marina had forgotten about the home office we shared. Her computer was still there, password protected but not encrypted. And thanks to our shared cloud storage account, I had access to everything. I spent the next 3 hours going through Marina's files. Business correspondence, client contracts, financial records, and buried deep in a folder marked personal, I found what I was looking for. Text messages, hundreds of them, dating back 8 months. Marina and Travis planning their affair with the attention to detail of military strategists. The early messages were cautious, flirtatious. Marina complaining about me, Travis offering sympathy and expensive dinners. But as the relationship progressed, the texts became more explicit and more revealing. Travis wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was using her. Her interior design business gave him access to wealthy clients, people looking to buy or sell expensive properties. Marina was feeding him information about her clients' financial situations, their real estate needs, their personal lives. In return, Travis was paying her. Not directly, but through inflated consulting fees for design services on properties he was flipping. Marina had made over $60,000 in the past 8 months, money she'd been hiding in a separate bank account. My wife wasn't just an adulteress, she was a fraud. I screenshotted everything and backed up the files to 3 different cloud accounts. Then I sat back in my chair and smiled for the first time in 24 hours. Marina thought she was so smart, leaving me for a younger, richer man. She thought she'd planned the perfect escape from our toxic marriage. She had no idea what perfect planning actually looked like. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard about Marina? That sucks, man. If you need anything, let me know. Mike Chen. Mike Chen. No, Mike Thompson. Another friend from the old days, before Marina decided my social circle wasn't good enough for her new image. I was about to respond when another text came in, this one from Jessica. Staying at Mom's tonight. Don't wait up. Mom's. She was already calling Travis's place Mom's. I poured myself a whiskey and walked out to my garage workshop. The space was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Tools organized, projects in various stages of completion, the smell of wood stain and motor oil that Marina had always complained about. This was my sanctuary, the place where I created things with my hands, where I turned raw materials into something beautiful and functional. Marina never understood that. To her, I was just a blue-collar guy who couldn't provide the lifestyle she wanted, but she was about to learn that blue-collar guys knew how to build more than just furniture and fix more than just cars. We knew how to plan, how to be patient, how to wait for exactly the right moment to strike. I opened the hidden drawer in my workbench and pulled out a burner phone I'd bought 3 months ago. Time to make some calls. The first number I dialed belonged to a private investigator named Carol Stevens. I'd used her services before when I first suspected Marina's affair. She was discreet, thorough, and completely unscrupulous when the price was right. Carol, it's Eli Castellano. I need another favor. What kind of favor? The kind that pays double your usual rate? There was a pause. I'm listening. I need you to dig up everything you can find on Travis McKinnon. Financial records, business dealings, personal relationships, everything. How deep do you want me to go? Deep enough to bury him. 3 days later, Carol called with information that exceeded my wildest expectations. Travis McKinnon wasn't just a trust fund baby with questionable business ethics. He was a full-blown criminal. The shell companies I discovered were just the tip of the iceberg. Travis had been running a sophisticated money laundering operation through his father's real estate business, washing cash for some very unpleasant people. The kind of people who didn't file complaints with the Better Business Bureau when deals went bad. But the really interesting part was his relationship history. Travis had a pattern: seduce successful women, gain access to their businesses and client lists, then move on when he'd extracted maximum value. Marina was number 4 in the past 3 years. He's got a type, Carol explained over the phone. Professional women, usually married, always with something he can exploit. The interior designer before your wife lost her business and her husband. Ended up declaring bankruptcy. What happened to her? She tried to hurt herself. She's in a psychiatric facility upstate. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Send me everything. Eli, Carol's voice carried a warning. Whatever you're planning, be careful. McKinnon's connected to some dangerous people. So am I said, and hung up. That evening, I drove to Murphy's Tavern where Sam was working his weekend bartending shift. The place was crowded with the usual suspects: factory workers, retirees, and various members of what Marina used to call Eli's loser friends. Funny how quickly your social circle shrinks when your wife decides you're an embarrassment. Sam poured me a whiskey without being asked. You look like heck. Feel worse. I took a sip and surveyed the room. How many people here have been screwed over by the McKinnon family? More than a few. Why? Just curious about the local sentiment. Sam leaned across the bar, lowering his voice. Eli, what are you up to? Before I could answer, the tavern door opened and 3 familiar faces walked in. Tom Bradley, Mike Thompson, and Dave Sullivan, guys I'd known since high school, back when we all thought we'd conquer the world together. They'd been regular fixtures in my life until about 2 years ago, when Marina started making comments about upgrading our social circle. Gradually, the invitations stopped coming. The group texts went silent. They were still friendly when we ran into each other around town, but the easy camaraderie was gone. Tonight, though, they approached my end of the bar with purpose. Eli, Tom said, extending his hand. Heard about what happened. That's rough, man. Thanks. I shook hands with all 3, noting the genuine sympathy in their faces. Good to see you guys. Listen, Mike said, glancing around to make sure we weren't overheard. We wanted to talk to you about something. Dave nodded. About Marina and McKinnon. I raised an eyebrow. What about them? We know you probably don't want to hear this, Tom said, but we tried to warn you. About 2 years ago. The whiskey in my glass suddenly tasted like battery acid. Warn me about what? Marina was already seeing McKinnon back then, Mike said quietly. Not sleeping with him, but spending time. Lunches, coffee meetings, that kind of thing. We saw them together a few times. Why didn't you tell me? The 3 men exchanged uncomfortable looks. Finally, Dave spoke up. We tried. Remember that barbecue at Tom's place? We were going to pull you aside, talk to you privately. I did remember. It was right around the time Marina started her campaign to elevate our social status. She'd spent the entire barbecue making snide comments about the beer selection, the food, the conversation topics. Marina shut it down, Tom continued. Made it clear we weren't welcome in your lives anymore. Said you were moving in different circles and didn't need small-town thinking holding you back. She told us you agreed with her, Mike added. Said you were embarrassed by your old friends and wanted to focus on more professional relationships. The pieces clicked into place. Marina hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been systematically isolating me from my support system, making sure I had nowhere to turn when she finally made her move. I never said any of that, I told them. We figured as much, Dave said. But by then, the damage was done. You stopped calling, stopped showing up to things. We thought maybe you really had outgrown us. Sam poured drinks for all of us without being asked. So what now? I looked around the table at these men. Good men, loyal friends I'd nearly lost because of my wife's manipulation. Men who'd tried to warn me and been rebuffed for their efforts. Now, I said, raising my glass, we even the score. Over the next 2 hours, I laid out everything I'd learned about Travis and Marina. The money laundering, the pattern of exploitation, the hidden bank accounts, the systematic destruction of other women's lives. My friends listened with growing anger and disgust. Son of a witch, Tom muttered. And Marina's helping him? Marina's the perfect mark, I explained. Successful business, wealthy clients, desperate to upgrade her lifestyle. She probably thinks she's playing him, but he's been playing her from day one. So what's the plan? Mike asked. I smiled. You really want to know? They all nodded. Phase 1 was letting them think they'd won. Marina gets her dramatic exit, Travis gets his trophy, and I get to play the role of the devastated husband. Everyone in town feels sorry for poor Eli Castellano. And phase 2? Dave prompted. Phase 2 is where it gets interesting. I pulled out my phone and showed them some of Carol's research. Travis's financial records, his pattern of targeting married women, the connection to money laundering operations. We're going to destroy him, I said simply. Professionally, financially, socially. And we're going to do it in a way that makes Marina realize exactly what kind of man she threw away her marriage for. How? Sam asked. By giving Travis McKinnon exactly what he deserves and making sure the whole town watches it happen. Tom leaned forward. Count me in. Me too, Mike said. And me, Dave added. Sam grinned. This is either the best idea you've ever had or the worst. Either way, I'm not missing it. We spent the next hour working out the details. Tom worked for the county assessor's office and had access to property records. Mike was a CPA who understood financial fraud. Dave owned a construction company and knew every contractor, inspector, and city official in town. Sam had connections throughout the service industry. Bartenders, waiters, hotel clerks, people who saw everything and remembered faces. Between the 5 of us, we had the resources to investigate every aspect of Travis McKinnon's life and business dealings. There's one more thing, I said as we prepared to leave. Marina thinks she's going to take me to the cleaners in the divorce. Half the house, alimony, maybe even part of my business. Can she do that? Dave asked. Not if she's been hiding assets and committing fraud. I finished my whiskey. Turns out adultery is the least of her problems. As I drove home that night, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Optimism. For the first time since Marina walked out of that restaurant, I wasn't reacting to her moves. I was making my own. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Jessica was still staying at Mom's, and I was beginning to think that might be a permanent arrangement. Fine by me. She'd made her choice, just like Marina had. I walked out to my garage workshop and opened the hidden drawer in my workbench. Inside, next to the burner phone and the manila envelope full of evidence, was a small notebook where I'd been keeping track of everything. I opened to a fresh page and wrote, Phase 2, Day 1. Then I started making a list of everyone who needed to pay for what they'd done to me. Marina was at the top, of course. Travis was second. But there were others. People who'd known about the affair and said nothing. Friends who'd abandoned me when Marina decided I was an embarrassment. Even my own daughter who'd chosen sides without hearing my story. They all thought they knew Eli Castellano. The reliable husband, the steady provider, the guy who fixed things quietly and never made waves. They were about to meet someone completely different. Someone who'd learned that being nice got you nothing but betrayal and humiliation. Someone who understood that in this world, you either destroy your enemies or they destroy you. I closed the notebook and smiled. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. 2 weeks into Phase 2, everything was falling into place with the precision of a Swiss watch. Tom had uncovered irregularities in 3 of Travis's recent property deals. Mike had traced the money laundering scheme through 4 different shell companies. Dave's construction contacts had provided information about building code violations and permit fraud. And Sam's network of service industry sources had documented Travis's pattern of targeting married women at upscale restaurants and hotel bars. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source, my daughter Jessica. She showed up at the house on a Tuesday evening looking uncharacteristically subdued. I was in the kitchen, eating takeout Chinese food and reviewing Carol's latest intelligence report when she walked in without knocking. Dad, we need to talk. I looked up from my lo mein. Let me guess. You want me to sign some papers so you can move in with your mother permanently? No. She sat down across from me, fidgeting with her phone. It's about Travis. Something in her voice made me set down my chopsticks. What about him? She paused, struggling with the words. He's not what Mom thinks he is. Enlighten me. Jessica took a shaky breath. Last night I was staying at his condo. Mom was working late, so it was just me and him. He was drinking and he started asking me weird questions. Ice formed in my veins. What kind of questions? About my friends, about which ones came from wealthy families, about whether any of them had older sisters or mothers who might be looking for excitement. She shuddered. The way he was looking at me, Dad, it wasn't normal. I forced my voice to remain calm. Did he touch you? No, but he wanted to. I could tell. Tears started forming in her eyes. And when I tried to leave, he blocked the door, said I was being unfriendly and that maybe I should be more grateful for everything he was doing for our family. The Chinese food turned to ash in my mouth. Where's your mother? She doesn't believe me. Says I'm just trying to cause problems because I can't accept the divorce. Jessica wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She chose him over me, Dad, her own daughter. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're safe now. He'll never touch you. What are you going to do? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She was 18, legally an adult. But in that moment, she looked like the scared little girl who used to run to me when thunderstorms woke her up at night. I'm going to fix this, I said. All of it. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with my team at Murphy's Tavern. Sam opened the bar early so we could have privacy, and I laid out what Jessica had told me. Son of a witch, Tom said when I finished. He's grooming her. Or trying to, Mike added. Good thing she got out of there. This changes things, Dave said. We're not just talking about financial crimes anymore. This is predatory behavior. Sam poured himself a shot of whiskey, even though it wasn't even 10 in the morning. What do you want to do? I'd been thinking about that all night. We accelerate the timeline. I want everything ready by this weekend. That's fast, Tom warned. Are you sure we have enough evidence? I pulled out my phone and showed them Carol's latest report. Travis McKinnon has been running the same scam for 3 years. 4 women, including Marina. 2 of them ended up in financial ruin. 1 tried to take her own life, and now he's targeting my daughter. What about the money laundering? Mike asked. Carol traced it back to a black market pill distribution network based in Boston. Travis has been washing their money through his real estate deals, taking a percentage for himself. Dave whistled low. How much money are we talking about? Conservatively, $2 million over the past 18 months. The room went quiet. Finally, Sam spoke up. That's federal crime territory, Eli. These aren't local small-time crooks we're dealing with. I know. I finished my coffee and stood up. Which is why we're going to make sure the right people get this information at exactly the right time. The FBI? Tom asked. Eventually, but first we're going to have a little fun. That afternoon, I drove to Marina's interior design studio downtown. She'd built her business in a converted Victorian mansion, all exposed brick and industrial fixtures, the kind of calculated authenticity that impressed her wealthy clients. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I walked past her and straight into Marina's office. She was sitting behind her glass desk, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. Eli, she said, not looking up from her computer. You can't just barge in here. We need to talk about Jessica. That got her attention. What about Jessica? I closed the office door and sat down across from her. She came to me last night, told me about Travis's inappropriate behavior. Marina's expression hardened. She's lying. Is she? Or are you just so desperate to justify your choices that you'll throw our daughter under the bus? Travis would never... Travis McKinnon is a predator, I interrupted. He targets successful women, gains their trust, then exploits them financially and on a deeply personal level. You're just his latest mark. Marina laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're pathetic, Eli, making up stories about Travis because you can't accept that I chose someone better than you. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Carol's reports. Travis has done this before. 3 other women, all successful professionals, all married. Would you like to know what happened to them? For just a moment, doubt flickered across her face. Then her walls went back up. I'm not discussing this with you. Fine, but when this all comes crashing down, and it will, remember that I tried to warn you. I stood up to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Marina, you might want to check those consulting fees Travis has been paying you. The IRS tends to frown on unreported income from criminal enterprises. Her face went white. What are you talking about? Ask your boyfriend. I'm sure he'll explain everything. That evening, I was in my garage workshop when my burner phone rang. Carol's voice was tense. Eli, we have a problem. Someone's been asking questions about you. What kind of questions? The kind that suggests Travis McKinnon knows you're investigating him. My contact at the courthouse says someone matching his description was there yesterday, looking at property records and asking about your business. I felt a chill run down my spine. How much does he know? Hard to say. But if he's connected to the people I think he's connected to, you need to be very careful. After I hung up, I sat in my workshop for a long time, thinking. Travis was getting suspicious, which meant I was running out of time. I needed to make my move before he made his. I pulled out my regular phone and sent a group text to Tom, Mike, Dave, and Sam. Emergency meeting tomorrow night. Murphy's 8 p.m. It's time. Then I opened my notebook and turned to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, Phase 3, The Reckoning. Below that, I started writing names. Everyone who had betrayed me, abandoned me, or hurt my family. Travis McKinnon was at the top of the list, followed by Marina. But there were others. Nina Hartwell, Marina's best friend who'd known about the affair from the beginning. The neighbors who'd whispered behind my back. Even some of my former clients who'd stopped calling when word got out about my marital problems. They'd all written me off as a broken-down middle-aged man whose wife had traded up. They thought I was finished, irrelevant, defeated. Tomorrow night, they'd learn how wrong they were. The plan came together like a perfectly engineered machine. Sam closed Murphy's Tavern early, claiming a private event. Tom brought copies of all the property records showing Travis's fraudulent transactions. Mike had financial documents tracing the money laundering operation. Dave contributed a list of building code violations and permit fraud at Travis's construction projects. And Carol had provided the crown jewel, recorded phone conversations between Travis and his Boston contacts discussing money from sedatives. We spread everything across 3 tables in the back room of the tavern, creating what looked like a war room in a crime thriller. This is enough to put him away for 20 years, Mike said, reviewing the financial evidence. Federal prison, Tom added. Money laundering, tax evasion, fraud. The FBI will have a field day. But we're not just handing this over to the feds, are we? Dave asked. I smiled. Where's the fun in that? I'd spent the afternoon making calls on my burner phone, setting up what I like to think of as a community education event. Nothing illegal, nothing that could be traced back to us. Just a series of carefully timed revelations that would destroy Travis McKinnon's life in the most public way possible. Tomorrow is the annual Founders Day festival, I explained. Half the town will be there, including all of Travis's clients, his father's business associates, and Marina's social circle. And, Sam prompted, and Travis is scheduled to give a speech about responsible development and community values at 2 o'clock. The room erupted in laughter. You're going to ambush him at a public event? Tom asked. I'm not going to do anything, but someone might have some interesting questions about his business practices. I pulled out a list of local reporters, city council members, and business leaders who would be attending the festival. Carol has been very busy making sure certain information reaches certain people at exactly the right time. What about Marina? Dave asked. Marina will be there too. She's providing design services for the festival displays. I took a sip of beer. She's about to get a very public education about her boyfriend's true nature. And your daughter? Jessica is staying with her aunt in Boston for the weekend, far away from whatever happens next. We spent the next 2 hours going over every detail. Carol would anonymously tip off the FBI field office in Springfield, but not until after our public revelation. The local newspaper would receive copies of the financial documents at exactly 1:30 p.m., 30 minutes before Travis's speech. The city building inspector would get the permit fraud evidence at the same time. But the real masterstroke was Nina Hartwell. Marina's best friend had been the one person I'd trusted to tell me if something was wrong in my marriage. Instead, she'd helped cover up the affair, even going so far as to provide alibis when Marina was with Travis. Nina's husband doesn't know she's been helping Marina cheat, I explained, but he's about to find out, along with everyone else at the festival. How? Sam asked. I pulled out a manila envelope. Text messages, photos, Nina and Marina planning Marina's affair, laughing about what a fool I was, discussing how to hide the evidence. Jesus, Mike muttered. You've been thorough. I've had a lot of time to plan. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Perfect weather for Founders Day. I dressed carefully, khakis, polo shirt, the kind of outfit that said, harmless middle-aged divorced guy. I wanted to blend into the crowd, just another face in the sea of townspeople celebrating our community's history. The festival was held in the town square with vendors, live music, and speeches from local dignitaries. Travis was scheduled to speak at the main stage at 2 p.m., right after lunch when the crowd would be at its largest. I arrived at noon and spent 2 hours circulating through the crowd, making small talk, accepting sympathy about my divorce, playing the role of the wounded but dignified ex-husband. Several people commented on how well I was handling everything, how mature I was being about the whole situation, if they only knew. At 1:25, I spotted Carol near the newspaper stand. She gave me a subtle nod. The information had been delivered. At 1:30, I saw the building inspector checking his phone and frowning. At 1:35, the editor of the local newspaper was making urgent phone calls. At 1:45, Travis McKinnon took the stage, looking confident and handsome in his expensive suit. Marina stood in the VIP section with the other speakers' families, beaming with pride at her successful boyfriend. Travis began his speech with the usual platitudes about community values and responsible development. The crowd listened politely, most people checking their phones or chatting quietly among themselves. Then, at exactly 1:55, everything changed. The newspaper editor approached the stage and whispered something to the festival coordinator. The coordinator's face went pale. She walked over to the mayor, who was scheduled to introduce the next speaker. I watched from the crowd as the mayor read something on his phone, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm to barely contained anger. Travis was still speaking, oblivious to the commotion behind him. Believe in transparency and accountability in all our business dealings. The mayor stepped up to the microphone. Mr. McKinnon, I'm going to have to stop you there. Travis looked confused. Excuse me? Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor announced to the crowd, I've just received some very disturbing information about our speaker. It appears there are serious questions about Mr. McKinnon's business practices that need to be addressed. The crowd stirred, sensing drama. Travis's face went from confused to panicked. I don't know what you're talking about, he said into the microphone. The building inspector climbed onto the stage, carrying a thick folder. Mr. McKinnon, I have documentation of multiple permit violations and fraudulent inspections at your construction sites. Would you like to explain these to the community? Travis stepped back from the microphone, looking around frantically. His eyes found Marina in the crowd, silently pleading for help. But Marina was staring at her phone, reading something that was making her face go progressively whiter. The newspaper editor joined the group on stage. Mr. McKinnon, I have financial records suggesting you've been involved in money laundering operations. Care to comment? The crowd was fully engaged now, phones coming out to record the spectacle. Travis looked like a deer in headlights, his carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. This is ridiculous, he stammered. I don't have to listen to these accusations? He started to walk off the stage, but found his path blocked by two men in dark suits. FBI agents, I realized. Carol had timed their arrival perfectly. Travis McKinnon, one of the agents said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. We'd like to ask you some questions about your business activities. The crowd erupted. People were shouting questions, phones were recording everything, and Travis was being led away in handcuffs while maintaining his innocence. But I wasn't watching Travis anymore. I was watching Marina. She stood frozen in the VIP section, still staring at her phone. I knew what she was reading. The same financial documents that had just destroyed her boyfriend. The same evidence that implicated her in his money laundering scheme. Her carefully constructed new life was collapsing just as publicly as mine had 2 weeks ago. But unlike my humiliation, Marina's was entirely deserved. I started walking toward her, pushing through the crowd of shocked festival-goers. She saw me coming and tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The VIP section was surrounded by people recording the chaos with their phones. Hello, sweetheart, I said when I reached her. Enjoying the festival? Eli, she whispered. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about the money laundering. But you knew about the consulting fees. You knew about the shell companies. You knew you were hiding income from the IRS. Her face crumpled. What's going to happen to me? I looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording our conversation, at the FBI agents who were now looking in our direction. I suppose that depends on how cooperative you are with the investigation, I said, and how generous the federal prosecutors feel about accomplices who claim ignorance. Marina started crying, mascara running down her cheeks. The woman who had walked out of Romano's with such confidence 2 weeks ago was gone, replaced by someone who looked small and frightened and very, very alone. Why? She asked. Why did you do this to me? I leaned in close, speaking quietly so only she could hear. Because you forgot something important, Marina. You forgot that the man you married, the man you betrayed and humiliated and threw away, that man loved you enough to learn everything about you, including how to destroy you. I straightened up and smiled. Enjoy federal prison, sweetheart. I hear Orange is very slimming. As I walked away through the crowd, I heard someone calling my name. I turned to see Nina Hartwell pushing through the chaos, her husband close behind her. From the expression on his face, I could tell he'd received his own package of information. Eli! Nina shouted. We need to talk! No, I called back. We really don't. I kept walking, leaving behind the wreckage of Travis McKinnon's career, Marina's freedom, and the social circle that had written me off as irrelevant. Behind me, the Founders Day Festival had turned into the most entertaining event in our town's history. People would be talking about this for years, and every time they did, they'd remember that Eli Castellano wasn't the harmless, defeated man they'd thought he was. He was something much more dangerous. He was someone who planned ahead,